Welcome back to the Power BI project. In the last video, we worked in the query editor. So we finished the data preparation and loaded the data into our data model. So time to take a closer look at this data model right now. So right here, I'm back in our project, and at the moment, I'm in the report view. You can select the different views right here. Well, the report view will be covered later in this video. But before we really create our charts, we have to take a look at the data model. To do this, we should go to the data view, which we can find right here. Well, and right there, we can see our table. Actually, we have two tables, but you can select these right here by clicking right there. And if you click onto this little arrow right here, you can simply see all the different columns also right here. So let's start and work on that data. Well, I selected our taxi model table right here. And the first thing I would like to change is, well, I don't like that date format right here. So how can we change that? Well, as you could see, I simply selected that column right here. And if I now go to the modeling ribbon, then you can see, well, the formatting options. You can see that the data type is already correct. It's date, which is totally fine. But, well, the way it is displayed is not the way I would like it to be. So if we go to format right here and date time, then you can select from a broad range of different date formats. Well, let's select one, I don't know, maybe this one, for example, like that. So you can see now the weekday is not displayed in here anymore. But talking about the weekday, well, I would like to have an extra column actually in here, which displays exactly that, so the weekday. And if you remember back our first video, then we created a table which includes all the weekdays. You can find it right here, our weekdays table. And here we have these weekdays. So how can we connect these two tables now? Well, maybe we can create a new column in our taxi model table right here, which includes numbers for the different weekdays. Because if you look back in our table, you can see that we have a number for each weekday. The good news is that we can do that. So let's go back to our taxi model table right here. And now we'll add a new column. And we will add a calculated column. That's important because that's what it's called in the data model in Power BI Desktop. To add such a calculated column, we will simply select the new column option right here, this one. Well, and as you can see, you now have that new column and you have that formula bar. So what you can do is you can first rename that column maybe to weekday number, the same name that we have in the weekdays table, by the way. Now, how can we assign a number to that weekday? Well, the good news is that there is an implemented function in Power BI Desktop. And this function is simply called weekday. You can find it right here. By the way, you can navigate through the formulas using the arrow keys, the up and down arrow keys on the keyboard. And if you find the formula that you would like to have, then you can simply press Tab right here on the keyboard, then write that square brackets, and now select the date column. You can see it, the first option right here. Again, press Tab, now write a comma, and now select the second option. So Monday should be 1 and Sunday should be 7. This is what we want to have. So if you press Tab once more and press Enter, then we can see that the days were numbered correctly right here. But what have we done actually? We used a data analysis expression, a DAX in the short form. This is simply the formula language that is used in Power BI Desktop in the data model. Now, if you want to find out more about the DAX, just take a look at the official documentation right here. Right there, you can see lots of different functions that you can apply to your data model the way we did it right here. Now, in this video, we will not dive really deep into DAX. We will just apply some basic functions just to make sure that you get an idea of how this generally works. If you want to dive deeper, just play around with the data using maybe the dataset we have right here and the official documentation. So now we know what we did right here and why we did it, but talking about the why, we actually wanted to connect the weekdays with the weekdays in our weekdays table. Well, and whenever we talk about connecting different types of information in a data model, this brings us to relationships. Because the great thing is that we don't only have a report view right here and the data view right there, but we have a third option, and this is the relationship view right here. And in there, you can basically see our two tables now in a different format. But if you click right here, for example, just like that, you can increase the size, and here you can reduce the size. You can drag that around just as you prefer. But the important thing is that, well, if you look at the different columns right here, we now have two equal columns. We have our weekday number, this one right here, and this one right there. And if I now simply select the weekday number column right here, so I press and hold the left mouse button, and drag it right there to that weekdays number column in our second table, then you can see that this connection is established. And with that, we established, in our case, a many-to-one relationship. Because each weekday number only exists once in our weekdays table, but exists multiple times or many times in our taxi model table. That's basically the many-to-one relationship that we established. You can also see that by that star right here, which is simply many, and the one right there. So this is also something you can do in Power BI Desktop. You can easily establish relationships. And when we create the visuals in a few minutes, you will see that this relationship will be a great help. However, we saw the relationships right here, so we can go back to our data model actually, right there, and now think about another calculation that we could apply. Let's create a new calculated column again, right here. Let's maybe calculate the distance per ride, because we have the distance right here and we have the rides per day. So let's maybe call that distance per ride, like that. Well, and how can we refer to that columns now? Well, we can again simply write the square brackets and now simply write di. And as you can see, we immediately see that this is the column that we see right here. So we can press tab, now divided by another square bracket, the ride, or the rides per day actually, right here. If you now press enter, well, then you can see that we have our, well, average ride distance per day displayed right there in this column. Now, however, the formatting is not the best, so we might want to change that. Well, and to do this, we simply have to unselect that column first and now reselect it. Now it's working, because right here in that modeling ribbon up there, you can see that you have again the data type. We have the format, which could again be set to decimal number right here. And now you see that you only have two decimals right there. If you want to change that, you can simply click right here. So you have 3, 2, 1, just as you prefer. So this is how you can format your data right here in this data model. However, I always talked about the calculated columns. This means adding a new column and doing the calculation. But there is another type of, well, calculation that we can apply to our data model using the data analysis expressions, the DAX. And these are measures. Now, what's the difference between a measure and a calculated column? Well, as you can see right here, a calculated column is displayed right here, so you can see it, and is immediately calculated. And by that, it consumes memory. A measure is something different. And to show you how a measure works, let's maybe simply create one. So to create such a measure, you again go to the modeling ribbon, and now you can find the new measure right here. If you click onto that, well, then you can again find your formula bar right here, but you cannot see that new column right here, because when we created a new calculated column, we could immediately see that a new column will be added. So there seems to be kind of a difference between a calculated column and a measure. But let's create the measure first and then take a look at the details. So what measure could we create right here? Let's first maybe delete that capital M like that. And let's maybe create a measure with the total revenue. Now, what's the total revenue in here? Well, this should simply be the sum of the fare, the extra, the tax, and the tip. Now, why don't we just write again these square brackets and now write fare. This doesn't work apparently. So we cannot calculate that. No, of course we can do that. We just need another formula. And this formula is called sum x, like that. If you now press tab, well, then you simply have to define the table. As you can see right here, this is taxi model. So right here, our table name. And if you now press tab again, Well, then you can write a comma. So we have specified the table name, and if we now write the square brackets, then we can select the extra, pressing tab, plus another square bracket, then we need the fare, then plus and another square bracket. And then, well, we cannot select another column because with some x, if you write it this way, we can only add 2 columns. And that's not what we want because we want to add 4 columns actually. But there is a simple way how to solve this problem. The only thing we have to do is, well, we have to kind of delete that part like that. Now write taxi, or tax actually, it's enough. And now we can again select the different columns. So we select the taxi model extra, then write the plus, again write taxi, then add the fare, add it, write tax again, add the tax, and one less plus, and the taxi, and add the tip. So we have extra, fare, tax, and tip. And if we now press enter, well, then we see that we don't see a lot. This is not true, because if you look at the fields column now, you can find the measure, if I increase the size maybe, the measure total revenue right here. So we kind of added that measure, but the measure is not calculated right now, because a measure is only calculated when you use it in a visual, and visuals are not created right here, but created in the report view right there. And as you can see already, in the report view, you also have all your different fields available, including that measure. So if I drag that measure then into a visual, then it will be calculated. We will see how this works in a few seconds. Let's just go back one last time to our data view right here and maybe add one more measure to it. Because maybe it's also possible to kind of use that measure in a formula. Let's try that and create another measure by clicking right here. And again, I don't like that capital M, so let's call that. And maybe revenue per passenger maybe. Let's see if we can calculate that. Now, how would that work? Well, we could write divide like that. And now what would be the numerator? Well, this should actually be our total revenue. Now we have that measure, so maybe we can refer to it. Yes, we can. You see, I just wrote these square brackets, and now we have that measure, so we can press tab again. Now we want to divide it, so we have to write a comma because we use that divide formula. And now we can simply write another square bracket, and then we can only select the measure again. But actually, we want to refer to a specific column, the passenger column. But if we delete that, and now simply write sum, and press tab, well, then we can refer to that column that we want to. So we can go down right here to the passengers. Well, and if we now close the bracket right here and press enter, well, then we can again see that, of course, a column wasn't added. We learned that because we created a measure. But we can see the measure, if I increase the size right here, right there. And with that, we are actually done with our first overview of the data view, because we learned that we can write different formulas and add different calculations by using the DAX, the data analysis expressions, right here. And we saw that we can create relationships right there in that relationship view. So I think now it's time to go to the report view and create some visuals based on the information that we created. So let's go to the report view right here and see what we can do right here now. Well, the first thing is we could simply create a line chart. And how do we create charts in general right here? Well, you see that visualizations column actually. And if you now select a specific chart type, as I said, let's maybe select a line chart, then you can see that chart right there, or that frame actually. You can also refer to that as a tile, which is kind of the area where the chart is going to be displayed. So if you increase the width, for example, you can change that, you can play around, just as you prefer. Let's maybe make that quite big actually, because I would like to display the following in that chart. As an axis, I would like to have the date, so our initial date column that we have from the source file, right here. Now we cannot see a lot, so let's maybe add the passengers right here as a value. And could you see what I did? you can simply select the chart and then drag the fields right here from that fields column into the corresponding sections of that visual. So it's an easy drag and drop logic actually. But now we have that chart and we can now see the passengers by year. Okay. And we can also see that we have kind of a hierarchy in here, because if you see right here, you have year, quarter, month, and day. Additionally, you can see that hierarchy right there with that arrow. So if you click onto that, then you can see, if I go back right here, that we have the annual data right here. And in the next step, you have the quarterly data aggregated for both years. If you click one step further, then you can even see the monthly data, but again, aggregated for both years. And if you go down once more, well, then you can see the daily data, but only numbered from 1 to, well, 31. Now, this is one way how to display the information right here. And the important thing is, which you can see right here, is that you can add such hierarchies in Power BI to kind of display different details regarding the information in one different visual. But I don't want to have that right here. I would like to have simply a chart, a line chart, which shows me the daily passenger amount. Well, and to change this, you can simply go back to your visualizations column, click right here, and now change that from date hierarchy to date. And as you can see, now we have a chart with the amount of passengers for all the different days in each year. So in the 2 years actually, that we have data for. And that's how easy you can create a chart in Power BI. Now let's create another visual then. Why don't we create a column chart, for example? So let's select the column chart right here, for example. Oh, now I changed the chart type. Why did that happen? Well, if you select the chart, then you can also, well, dynamically change the chart type that should be displayed. So you can change it to such a bar chart or a pie chart, which doesn't look really good, or back to the line chart. So this is also a great function of Power BI Desktop. You can dynamically change the chart type that you want to. If you want to create a new chart type, then you can simply unselect your current chart by clicking right here into the report page. Now talking about pages. This is a report page. You can see that page 1 right here. And this page specifies the area where you can place your visuals in. You can see this in this white area. If the space is not enough, then you can simply click right here to add a second, a third, a fourth, and so on page. If you don't want to have that page, you can delete it by clicking right here and press that. In our project, 1 page is enough. I just wanted to show you that. However, we wanted to create a second chart. So let's now select maybe the bar chart right here and drag it down and increase the size a little bit, like that maybe. Now in that chart, I would like to combine 2 things. I would like to have our weekday. You remember the weekday we created right here in that separate table, but that we connected with our many-to-one relationship. So let's select the weekday and drag it right here as an axis. And then I would like to have our measure, so the total revenue. I'm not sure, was it this one? Yeah, this one. So let's select that and drag it right here as a value. And as you can see, we now also created that chart based on a measure that was now calculated in that visual and based on our second table. So only because of this relationship, we are able to display this chart. And you can also see that the order of the days is correct because of the way we created that table. Now I also have a video where I show you another way how to create such a chart with the weekdays sorted correctly. Just take a look at this video to find out this different approach. However, we have that visual now. But I would like to show you 2 more visual types in Power BI. So let's unselect that again by clicking right here and now add a card right here. If you drag it right there, like this, and like that. Well, then I would like to display one specific value in this card. And this value is our second measure, so our revenue per passenger. So let's again drag that and put it right here. Well, and as you can see that let me make it smaller, just as you prefer. And as you can see, now we have the revenue per passenger for the total period, the average of course. Now, if I select a day, for example, right here in that chart, then you can see the average revenue for Sunday. You can do the same thing for Monday, for Tuesday, and so on. So as you can see, the chart types in Power BI are kind of interactive. And that's also important to know, right? Because this makes your report a lot more dynamic actually. However, if we click onto that column again, right here, then we have all the data selected again. But I'm still not happy, to be honest, because I would like to be able to specify a date range. Well, and to do this, we have another great feature in Power BI Desktop. So let's unselect our visual again, and now select a slicer right here. Now let's drag it right there, and make it bigger like that, and like this. Because now comes something really awesome, at least that's my opinion. Because if you now select that slicer and now drag the date right here into that field, well, then this doesn't look good first. Let me select this one, make it smaller like that. Sorry for that. Now I think you can see it better. Because now you can see that you have our total date range right here. And you can change it right here and right there by changing the day that should be displayed. That's awesome. But what's even more awesome is that if you click right here, then you can simply drag dynamically the date range that should be displayed. As you can see, now we're right here until April 16th right here. If you change that, it changes dynamically, and by that changes our line chart, our measure with the revenue per passenger, and of course also our column chart right here. Because only the information that is within that range is calculated and by that displayed in our visuals. And with that, we are now done with the second part of our project. Of course, you have a lot more options in the report view, in the data view, and in the relationship view. But this project should just give you a general idea of how powerful Power BI Desktop actually is. But we finished the part in Power BI Desktop, or the work in Power BI Desktop now. And this means we now want to share the results of our work with other people. And for this purpose, we finally have to use Power BI Service. Let's see how this works in the next video.